Something in you is about to disappear forever, and it is the best thing that will ever happen to you. The people who have undergone the deepest internal transformations are almost never the ones you've heard of. And this says a lot. They weren't the loudest. They weren't the most visible. They were just the ones who knew when to go silent. And if you're watching this, you need to hear what they knew before you waste any more time. There is a phase in life that looks like nothing from the outside, but changes everything inside. It is the phase where you stop reacting to everyone else and finally process what has been happening to you. Because sometimes you are not confused. You are just overcrowded. You cannot hear your own truth while living inside everyone else's noise. That is why solitude matters. It gives you space to see what drained you, what changed you, what you ignored, and what you are no longer willing to carry. Becoming unavailable is not emptiness. Sometimes it is where your spirit starts putting the pieces back in order. Boredom is not always empty. Sometimes boredom is the first time your spirit finally has enough silence to show you what has real weight. That is why people run from it so quickly. The moment life gets quiet, they reach for noise, attention, conversations, drama, or anything that makes them feel busy again. But sometimes boredom is not the problem. Sometimes boredom is the fire that burns through all the cheap cravings that were pretending to be purpose. Boredom is where false hunger dies. When you become unavailable for a while, you start realizing how much of your life was being filled by things that did not actually matter. Some conversations were just distractions. Some desires were just restlessness. Some people only felt important because you never had enough silence to question what they were really adding. And once that noise fades, something real starts coming back. Ideas return. Clarity returns. You start hearing what you actually want, not what the world kept pushing into your hands. Some ideas are not born from pressure. They are born when nobody can reach you for a while. Disappearing feels wrong because you were trained to believe your access belongs to other people. That is why guilt rises when you stop answering so fast, not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are stepping outside the role people were comfortable seeing you in. A lot of what people call kindness is really conditioning. You were praised for being easy to reach, easy to forgive, easy to depend on, and easy to pull back in. So when you finally choose space, it can feel selfish at first, even when it is necessary. Guilt is often the leash on the version of you people knew how to use. That discomfort is not proof that you should turn back. It is proof that you are touching a part of yourself that was never allowed to choose itself before. Becoming unavailable feels wrong because, for once, you are becoming unavailable to expectations that were never built to protect you. Your soul already knows things, but the world is loud enough to make you forget that. That is why constant exposure starts becoming dangerous in a quiet way. Not because every person around you is bad, and not because the outside world is evil, but because too much noise creates interference. Too many opinions, too many conversations, too many reactions, too many people projecting their fears, desires, and realities onto you can slowly make your own inner knowing harder to recognize. You start thinking you are confused, but maybe you are just crowded inside. Maybe your spirit is not silent. Maybe it is just being drowned out by everything you keep letting in. Confusion is what happens when too many voices stand between you and yourself. This is why becoming unavailable matters. You are not trying to escape life. You are trying to hear the part of you that existed before everyone else started adding their voice to it. The deeper version of you is not always dramatic or loud. It usually speaks quietly, but clearly. It does not beg for attention. It waits until the noise clears, and when you step back for a while, something starts to return. You begin to notice what feels heavy, what feels forced, what feels real, and what no longer belongs near you. Not because someone told you, not because you needed approval, but because your own signal finally became stronger than the static around it. When you become unavailable, some people will not see it as your need for space. They will see it as an attack, and that reaction reveals a lot, because the people who truly respect your spirit may not fully understand your silence, but they will not try to punish you for needing it. They may miss you, they may wonder where you've been, they may hope you are okay, but they will not turn your inward season into a crime against them. But some people will. They will turn your quietness into a story about their rejection. They will assume you are being cold, arrogant, distant, fake, or ungrateful. They will act like your silence is something you are doing to them, when really, it is something you are doing for yourself. And most of the time, it is because their connection to you depended on constant access. They were comfortable when you were easy to reach, easy to read, easy to call, easy to pull into conversation, easy to make responsible for their feelings. Some people do not miss your presence, they miss their access. That is why unavailability becomes a filter. It shows you which relationships have roots and which ones were only surviving because you kept watering them every day. The real ones can handle a little silence. The fragile ones start cracking the moment you stop performing the version of yourself they were comfortable with. And this does not mean you disappear to test people. That is not the point. The point is that when you finally honor your own need for space, the truth naturally reveals itself. You start seeing who respects your peace and who only respected your availability. Because relationships built on love will still have something to stand on when you step back for a while. But relationships built only on access will start asking why the door is no longer open. And now, it's time for today's comment of the day. What seemed like the easiest or cheapest way out later became an incredibly hard path. Dare to endure and accept where you are, knowing you will emerge stronger and deeply blissful. Sometimes avoiding discomfort today creates a heavier cost later, and sometimes the path that feels harder in the moment ends up giving you peace, strength, and a version of yourself you wouldn't trade. I also like that this comment doesn't say to rush through where you are. It says to endure it, accept it, not because this moment is permanent, but because fighting reality can make the journey feel heavier than it already is. And there's something hopeful in that last line, that who you become through difficult seasons might end up being worth more than the comfort you were trying to protect. Thank you for sharing this. The strange thing about clarity is that it usually arrives when you stop trying to force it. You can spend weeks chasing an answer, thinking about it from every angle, asking people what they think, looking for signs, trying to make the right decision, trying to feel certain before you move. And the more you chase it, the further away it feels, because now your mind is not listening anymore. It is grabbing. It is pressuring. It is trying to squeeze truth out of noise. And that is where people confuse movement with progress. They think because they are constantly searching, constantly asking, constantly thinking, constantly trying to figure it out, they must be getting closer to the answer. But sometimes all that searching becomes another form of noise. Sometimes the mind becomes so desperate to find clarity that it becomes too loud to receive it. But when you become unavailable for a while, that pressure starts to drop. You are no longer performing urgency for the world. You are no longer rushing to explain where you are going, what you are doing, who you are becoming, or why you need time. You are no longer trying to make your process look understandable to people who are not living it. And strangely, that is when the answers start coming back. Some things do not arrive because you chased them. They arrive because you finally made room. This is not always some dramatic, mystical moment. Sometimes it is very simple. Your mind finally gets quiet enough to hear what was already underneath the panic. The idea was there. The direction was there. The knowing was there. It was just buried under too much movement, too many opinions, too much emotional noise, and too much pressure to figure everything out immediately. That is why becoming unavailable can feel so powerful. You stop pulling on life so hard, and suddenly something lands. A decision feels obvious. A creative idea returns. A piece you could not force starts showing up on its own, not because you begged for it, not because you chased it harder than everyone else, but because you stopped crowding the doorway it was trying to enter through. And this is the part most people miss. There are answers that do not come when you are tense. They come when you are receptive. There are ideas that do not arrive when your whole life is filled with other people's voices. They arrive when your inner world has enough space to breathe again. So maybe the thing you are searching for is not far away. Maybe it is not hidden somewhere outside of you. Maybe it has been waiting beneath the panic, beneath the noise, beneath the pressure, beneath the constant need to keep up with everyone else. And maybe that is the lesson. Not everything has to be hunted down. Some things can only find you when you stop running around looking for them. There are answers that do not respond to pressure, they respond to space. Most people stay predictable because they are afraid of confusing others. They keep being the same person, answering the same way, showing up the same way, reacting the same way, because the moment they change, people start asking questions. And for a lot of people, being misunderstood feels worse than staying trapped. They would rather remain familiar to everyone else than become honest with themselves. But every major shift in your life will disappoint somebody's expectations. There is no way around it. If people build comfort around who you used to be, then your growth will feel like an inconvenience to them. If they were used to your instant replies, your silence will feel personal. If they were used to your explanations, your privacy will feel suspicious. If they were used to you always adjusting yourself, your boundaries will feel offensive. And this is why so many people never change in a real way. They only change in ways that are easy to approve of. They only grow in ways that do not disturb the people around them. But the kind of change that actually alters your life is rarely convenient for everyone watching. Every new version of you will first be judged by the people who benefited from the old one. That is why becoming unavailable can create tension. People may say you changed. They may say you disappeared. They may say you are acting different. They may speak about your silence like it is some kind of betrayal. And maybe you are different. Maybe you did disappear from the role they kept assigning to you. Maybe you are acting different because the old way of acting was costing you too much. Because sometimes being called different is not an insult. It is evidence. It means the old role is breaking. It means the version of you that was always reachable, always explaining, always adjusting, always making everyone comfortable is no longer running your life. And this is where you have to be strong enough to be misunderstood for a while. You cannot keep interrupting your own becoming just to make people less confused. You cannot keep translating every internal shift into words before you even understand it yourself. Some seasons are not meant to be explained while they are happening, so let them misunderstand it for a while. You do not need to explain a shift that is still forming. You do not need to make your silence acceptable to people who only understood you when you were easy to access. Sometimes you have to become temporarily misunderstood so you do not remain permanently available. Not everyone deserves to watch you become someone they never gave you permission to be. And this is something you have to understand when you are in a season of change, because some people do not relate to who you are. They relate to who you used to be. They have a picture of you in their mind, and every time you grow beyond that picture, they try to pull you back into it without even realizing what they are doing. They will remind you of how you used to act, how you used to think, how you used to respond, how you used to be available, how you used to tolerate certain things. And they may not even say it with bad intentions. Sometimes it sounds casual. Sometimes it sounds familiar. Sometimes it even sounds loving. But underneath it, there is often a quiet pressure to remain recognizable. That is why the sentence, "you used to," can be so dangerous. Because people will say, "you used to be more fun," when what they really mean is, "you used to abandon yourself more easily." They will say, "you used to answer faster," when what they really mean is your boundaries used to be weaker. They will say, "you used to tell me everything," when what they really mean is they are uncomfortable no longer having access to every corner of your life. "You used to" is not always memory. Sometimes it is a leash disguised as nostalgia, and this is why becoming unavailable becomes necessary. Because if you remain constantly accessible while you are changing, people will keep finding ways to touch the old version of you. They will call it joking. They will call it concern. They will call it just being honest. But what they are really doing is inviting you back into a role you are trying to outgrow. The goal is not to disappear forever. The goal is to return without asking for permission to be different. That is the twist most people miss. Becoming unavailable is not about cutting everyone off, vanishing from life, or turning your heart cold. It is not about proving a point. It is not about making people worry. It is not about becoming so distant that nobody can reach you. Real solitude is not an escape from love. It is a return to yourself. You step away for a while because something inside you needs to become clear without being interrupted. You become unavailable because your spirit is trying to form a new agreement with your life. And once that agreement becomes real, you do not come back the same way you left. You come back with new boundaries, new levels of discernment, new levels of respect for your own energy. And the people who only loved your availability may think you came back colder, but the truth is, you came back cleaner. You are no longer saying yes just because someone expects you to. You are no longer explaining every decision just to make people comfortable. You are no longer giving instant access to anyone who feels entitled to your presence. You are no longer confusing guilt with guidance. When something becomes real inside you, it stops asking the outside world for permission. That is what this whole season is about. It is not about isolation. It is about authority, spiritual authority, inner authority, the quiet ability to stand inside your own life and no longer hand the keys to people who only know how to drive you back into old patterns. And this is where people misunderstand the return. They think if you come back, everything should go back to normal. But sometimes you return so that nothing can go back to normal. You return, but the old access does not return. You return, but the old expectations do not return. You return, but the old version of you does not come back with you. That is the difference. Because disappearing without transformation is just distance. But becoming unavailable with intention changes the way you move when you reappear. And if you're still here, still listening, I truly appreciate you. Because a message like this is not for everybody. Some people here become unavailable and think it means disappearing from life, but you know it goes deeper than that. It means choosing the space where you can finally hear yourself again. So if you are in that quiet season right now, do not rush to explain it. Do not rush to make it look normal. Let it protect, what is forming in you. You are not being left behind. You are being called back inward. And when you return, you may not return louder, but you will return clearer, stronger, and harder to pull away from yourself. There is still something beautiful ahead of you,